This is Sybert signing into Red Alert 3 with Dankal as the Blue Soviets on the top right side of Fire Island, and Dontkillmeimnoob as the Purple Allies in the bottom left side. And both of these players are new, I think, at least to the channel. Not necessarily new to Red Alert 3 in any sense, but Dankal is number 2 overall at the time of casting this. And Dontkillmeimnoob is someone that I can just not locate, so I'm not sure entirely who this is. Quite possibly a Smurf for someone else, but they are going to be sending a dog up the middle just to try and do any sort of scouting, but also see, hey, what exactly does my opponent have going for them? Do they have an engineer heading for that oil derrick, which would be kind of strange if they didn't. Of course, very common to see engineers, pretty easy to secure those oil derricks, and unless, of course, your opponent goes some sort of crazy 2-dojo build, but you don't really have to worry about dojos in a Allies versus Soviet match. Anyways, both of these players going to be going fairly heavy infantry, or at least Dontkillme is. It looks like Dankal actually instead going to be going for a War Factory, and that is War Factory after 2 ref, but before any sort of super reactor. And also, he is deciding to place it in his main base instead of moving his MCV and placing it somewhere in the kind of mid-ground of this map, or at least a little bit closer to the central little, I guess, canal passageway, whatever you want to call it. But instead, he is going to be just throwing that down. It is a little bit uncommon. Most players do tend to forego the War Factory until they get into the mid-ground, because, you know, it's pretty easy to secure your third over here, and then your 4th ore node eventually getting around to that, and then most players don't really go beyond 4. Anyways, that's kind of irrelevant, but it's just interesting. He's actually going to be going for a couple of bullfrogs, which is a good move. Also, they're going to be throwing down the super reactor in the main base, and actually all of his buildings are in pretty close proximity. So, I mean, potentially it could lead to Vindicators doing extra splash damage. Most likely will not, but it could potentially lead to that. That's not something you see a whole lot of, is people actually like force firing in between buildings to try and do some extra damages. It's always a threat, but it's not very common to see. Anyways, this game, Dankal going to be going for fairly heavy infantry, supporting it with a single sickle and a couple of bullfrogs. Not a bad choice. He does have 3 bullfrogs, which is decent numbers. Wouldn't be bad to get a 4th one, as a couple of Vindicators will, of course, drop those numbers down to just 2. And, you know, 2 Vindicators, 2 Apollos is a pretty common build combination. And, oh, the Bears do get off a pretty good roar and locking down about 99% of those peacekeepers. I almost said conscripts, but the conscripts are having a heyday, just firing away. And now we do have the tumbling peacekeepers of, I guess, Doom or something, and the sickle is going to be heading away. The bullfrogs actually escaping Ron out of there away from the infantry, and they're probably just going to be protecting the sickle a little bit, keeping those Vindicators off of it, although Dankal could be taking some pretty heavy losses in terms of these 3 bullfrogs, as that would not be good. That would give basically complete air superiority to Dontkillme. In exchange, you know, he wouldn't really have a whole lot left. Going to be throwing his MCV out onto the water after taking a 3rd ore node, and Dontkillme did go ahead and grab both of his ore nodes, so he's up to 4, which is a pretty good spot to be in. Single bomb out of that Vindicator, going to be taking down the sickle, and he's still deciding to keep that War Factory there, throwing down a couple of more bullfrogs, bringing the number up to 5, which is not too shabby. Probably is going to be going for an engineer to throw into that oil derrick, just to get a little bit of extra econ going on and just kind of snub that economy from your opponent. Never a bad idea. 3 Javelin Troopers going to be mixed in and still going to be holding onto that multi-gunner turret, and actually going to be moving his MCV after throwing down the War Factory, or Armor Facility, as I guess it would technically be called in Red Alert 3. But both of these players now going to be up for those 4 ore nodes, and not a whole lot of harassment out of either of these players, so they're not playing super aggressive. They're just sitting back, kind of macroing up a bit, and the engineer is going to be heading for that oil derrick, so that will give Dankal a slight economic advantage. Although we do have to keep in mind that Dontkillme did have his ore nodes up a little bit sooner. And do we have any sort of aircraft just yet? No, not quite. Actually, where's the MCV? Over here. So still not being able to throw down any aircraft for any of those delicious twin blades, which are so good out on the water where it's a little bit harder to defend. your oil refineries, especially since a lot of players don't even bother going for a naval yard at any point in the game. But it does look like Dontkillme is probably going to be going for, I have no idea actually, he could be going for any number of things. Could be trying to go for a second airfield, which at this point would be at least a little bit silly, unless he wants to really push this Vindicator play and try and make it really work. He's going to be going for the Harvester Snipe, which is basically the most excitement in terms of harassment anyways, that we've seen during this game. An extra Bullfrog popping right out and going to be able to do a little bit of damage, but Peacekeeper's going to be taking the right side of the map. And instead, that Bullfrog does get kind of shrunk down and then just shoot ridiculously fast. It's kind of hilarious. But going to be grabbing that cash back. So Dankal making use of a bad situation in that, you know, he can't really stop that cryocopter from killing that, well, he couldn't really stop the Vindicator from killing the Harvester. So instead, he was able to just cash in on the opportunity. Never a bad choice. Going to be setting up a command hub in the middle, most likely for base defenses to kind of be thrown down. Yeah, he is going to be going for that base defense, and he did buy that max clearance upgrade. But massive amounts of Bullfrogs probably not going to be very good versus Athena cannons. However, Hammer tanks are at least a little bit better versus those Athena cannons. Will, you know, be able to do a little bit of damage, but it would be basically suicide to throw down a multi-gunner turret there. He might be able to throw it down over there. That's just way too close unless he really gets a freeze off. Oh, and he does. 3 hammer tanks will go down, or he'll spend a lot of time shooting at bears, but no, he did take all 3 of those hammer tanks down. And now with the Athena cannons, Dankal actually getting shown up a little bit right here, and he will be able to, I was going to say he will be able to snipe that multi-gunner turret, but that was actually a pretty good play by Dontkillme. With that leech beam, you can outrange the multi-gunner turret, but he didn't even have to because it just got sold off. Dontkillme was like, hey, I did the damage that I needed to do. I was just surprised that those hammer tanks stayed there for so long. So Dontkillme going to be not in too bad a shape for this game. I have no idea who that is, so it could be amazing for them, or this could just be average play for whoever Dontkillme is. But he's just going to be rushing in with these hammer tanks, trying to get the crush on those infantry, what few infantry units do remain. And even the Terror Drone getting in on the action and locking down an Athena cannon. That is not what you want to have to happen. And he will be able to grab that Athena cannon, grab the Athena cannon weapon for one of those tanks, which actually I think it was the tank that just got myrtleized right there. But that's okay. You know, it's basically random chance at that point. But they are going to be attacking the ground because that is always terribly fun to do, and not a whole lot else going out of Dankal right there. The airfield that I expected to see a little while ago, but actually going to be going for a naval yard way over here. And by that, he basically just forced the sell-off of the refinery. That's all that was really for. However, we do have a 4th ore node, not a 5th, because this one is technically gone, bringing that count down to that 5. But the Athena cannon going to be sniping both of those oil derricks, so instead of capping them back, or at least capping this one back, he's like, it's not really worth the trouble. I might as well just destroy them, which is interesting, because he never did sell off that original barracks from the early game, so he could have very easily grabbed that. And then the only thing is you do have to hold on to that oil derrick for over a full minute before it actually becomes worth it. V4 rockets going to be out for Dankal. And this placement is just kind of curious. He really loves his wall placement, but that is okay because as we learned, Red Alert 3 is more about the micro of walls than anything and trying to get those V4 rockets in there because they're so awesome. Not nearly as accurate as those Athena cannons, but that is of course the trade-off that you make when you get awesome fiery rockets instead of crazy lasers from space. And is there... Goodness, that looked like there was a guy actually on that little boat there. But no, just kidding, that is water animating through the bottom of the boat because it's crashed on the rocks. But Dankal going to be moving out on the left side, and a couple of V4s are going to be trying to take down this refinery, or they're just going to be shooting the rocks and trying to hit the Athena cannons and totally missing, which is pretty embarrassing. I mean, really, that's like the best that the Soviet army can offer is just some poorly aimed V4 rockets. Those poor Soviets, and with enough Athena cannons to actually just block the rockets, and then on top of that, being able to do some damage of his own. So Dontkillme able to do quite a bit of damage to Dankal's army, or at least do a little bit of damage to Dankal's artillery, which is really important in these games. where you get kind of the battle of this long-range artillery that is so common once you get into the mid and late game. But the Kirov is now here, and do we have enough anti-air to actually stop this? Yes, we do, but how much damage will the Kirov do? He will take out one Athena cannon, which is not quite making it worth it, considering how much damage Dontkillme or Dankal has taken from Dontkillme. However, forcing the sell-off of a barracks and a refinery is a pretty big deal. That is quite annoying, and this prospector could even be sent off to go somewhere else and then deploy and be sold off just to get a little bit of cash back from that. But Dankal actually going to be taking a 5th ore node, so he is going to be at least matching the economy of his opponent and actually way ahead in terms of economy. And both of those Mirage tanks go right through those toxins, which is never good. You just gotta drive through that green goo. It's almost like you're playing Left 4 Dead on crazy mode, where instead of a spitter, it's just giant airplanes that drop goo on you. That would be the worst thing ever. But grabbing that prospector, probably the easiest job for that terror drone. They're like, hey, we want you to go over here and grab this unit that can't attack you, that moves at like a ½ mile an hour. Okay, seems easy enough, but Natasha is now out. Will she actually be utilized, or will she simply just, oh goodness, the rain of fire from those V4s actually able to take out one of those Athena cannons? And Natasha, will she actually do anything in this game? So getting a little bit of cash from his work, and it would be kind of awesome to see Dankal load Natasha up into that bullfrog and do some damage. But those V4 rockets doing quite a bit of damage, able to keep the infantry at bay, although the infantry, if they would have rushed forward a little bit further, may have been able to do a bit more damage, although that does depend if he has spotted the Natasha. But Tanya has been spotted, so Dankal, if Natasha is completely out of position, this could do massive amounts of damage. However, the getting dangerously close, the Sentry Bomber is going to be swinging around to the right side of the map, and he spots both of the Kirovs, saying, hey, just wanted to make sure that you know that there are some Kirovs on the way, V4 Kirov Sentry Bombers on the way, and Natasha has now touched down. Will she be able to do anything, though? She's going to be waiting for that cryo blast to go down, and then hopping inside of that reactor and not being able to actually do anything. Oh no, she does grab the super reactor, shattering all of those walls. Doesn't quite get the auto-destroy on that. Oh goodness, and even grabbing Natasha right there. How did Tanya even do that? Sniping, or snapping back with that time belt. And I thought Natasha had actually sniped Tanya. Natanya? Goodness, I can't even get these names right, but able to take down all of those buildings, which means no Tier 2, no Tier 3, and taking out one of those refineries, which means Dankal has most likely lost this game, although he could definitely come back from it, and he's going to be even losing the war factory. So basically everything is now gone, and even the V4s can't really do anything. The bear will most likely get sniped by Dontkillme. So able to do a massive amount of damage after taking some pretty heavy losses from Dankal, and Dankal is now in full retreat with his V4 army. He is going to be losing every one of those units if he is not careful, and even the airfield could go down. The Kirovs were not able to do enough damage, and lots of rocks that are definitely not Mirage tanks going to be chilling out with the army. And every time those bears try and get out, get instantly sniped by a heroic Tanya, and that is going to be it. I wonder if Dankal left the game, or if Dontkillme simply just forced the game to crash just because. But that is going to be doing it for this cast. Dontkillme able to pull out a win versus number 2 Dankal. So GG to both of these players. But in the end, I guess Tanya is just better than Natasha or something like that. This is Sybert signing out.